Welcome. If you are here for the Teaching with Tinkercad webinar, you are in the right place. And even if you're not, we hope that you stay and join us because this is going to be a really fun conversation. So the topic tonight is culturally responsive makerspaces. My name is Kellyanne Mahoney. I will more formally introduce myself in a moment, but we wanted to give you time to introduce yourselves to each other. So please use the chat to introduce yourselves. This chat is your chat. So do please feel free to say, who you are, maybe where you're from. We get such a wonderful global audience of educators who join us for these webinars. So do please make the chat your own. And also for our warm-up question, we thought that we would start the conversation with this. So what are some words or phrases you would use to describe maker culture? So please let us know in the chat. Could just be a word, it could be a phrase. You could write a haiku if you wanted to. It's up to you. So what are some words or phrases you would use to describe maker culture? And again, if you're here for the Teaching with Tinkercad webinar, you are in the right place, and we are so happy that you're here.
I see learner is one in there. Student focused.
Nice.
Thinking with your hands, creative, tinker.
Oh, I like that, thinking with your hands. I feel like I do that when I try to do math.
Maker culture, DIY. Let's see. Freedom to experiment.
Nice, freedom to experiment.
Taking chances and challenging ourselves. Change and adapt, curiosity, creative minds, creativity and action.
Ooh, I like that.
Let's see. Sorry. Explorative. A lot of creativity, improving life.
Improving life, I love that.
Creative hands again. Make to motivate, that's fun.
That is fun, and it has some nice alliteration to it too. It's catchy.
Tinker's rebirth. Innovation nest.
Rebirth, it like makes you think of like the archetypes of a hero.
Innovation from school, bringing ideas to life. Fun, I like fun.
Fun is good too, and we hope that this will be a fun webinar for you tonight, and we have a lot in store. So let's get started with our formal program. We are so happy that you are here. This is the season finale of this first season of the Teaching with Tinkercad webinars for 2023. So the topic for this evening is culturally responsive makerspaces. We've been looking forward to this topic all season, and we are super excited for the speakers that we have in store for you tonight. There's going to be a lot to learn and just like a lot to think about. And I think you'll leave feeling very inspired this evening. So my name is Kellyanne Mahoney. I'm a youth program specialist at Autodesk. You've met Randy a little bit already in the chat, but Randy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I am on the youth team here at Autodesk, so I work on Instructables and Tinkercad, and yeah, I help out on the site. Maybe you've interacted with me, I run the contest, and yeah, I'm always happy to meet with educators.
And Randy is an expert chat vocalist as well, so he's going to be vocalizing all of your thoughts. We want this to be a 200-way conversation this evening, so we want to inject your voices into this episode as much as possible. And I was a teacher in the Boston Public Schools for 13 years prior to joining Autodesk. So it's just really exciting to always be able to get together, I feel like, with my people. So thank you for being here. There are many ways to interact with us on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. So these are kind of all the handles that you can use to connect with us even during the webinar tonight. And we also use the hashtag #TinkerTogether. We are so excited about our guest this evening. So we're going to hear from Kevin Butler, who is an alum of the Hidden Genius Project. And he's also the coordinator for the Hidden Genius Project's Ubuntu Center in Oakland. So here are some ways to connect with him, and you are going to love his presentation this evening. We are also joined by Anais Ariola, who is a longtime Design With Us participant, mentor, and co-founder of Make Just Right, which is a design consultancy. And so she is going to be joined by Jen Lee Reeves, who is the executive director and co-founder of Design With Us, which is another great organization that you're going to hear about this evening. And these are some ways that you can connect with Design With Us. Even now, if you wanted to, you can follow them. We also are joined by Guillermo Melantoni, who leads Tinkercad. So he's the director of product management at Autodesk, and he's just going to share a brief message with us tonight around why this topic matters to Autodesk and to Tinkercad. So how to participate? You're already doing it just fine. So do please know that this chat is your chat. Please feel free to connect with each other. We are all, I think, pretty adept at using Zoom in our lives at this point, but for the sake of this webinar, if you want to connect with each other, and we encourage you to do so in the chat, please use the chat icon to do that. If you want to actually have a question answered in real time, like you have kind of an individual question that you want someone from the Tinkercad team to answer, please use the question and answer feature. And there are real humans in the background here at your service to answer your questions, and they are delighted to do so. So goals. So we've had goals all series. So, thinking about how you can combine disciplines in your teaching in order to create multiple access to the content that you're trying to teach. Also, just like thinking about how you can engage your students and learn from them about what matters to them and kind of bring that into the curriculum. We also want all of this to kind of lead and ramp up to your learners, the students that you work with, to know about what are some exciting future careers that they can be part of. And kind of one of our objectives, as a bigger objective from Autodesk, is we really feel as though the industries that we serve could use a lot more diversity in them. That's kind of a big problem that a lot of our customers face. And we thank you, teachers, for helping us address that problem, especially by attending this webinar. And we hope that Tinkercad and Fusion 360 is part of their journey. We also hope that tonight is an opportunity for you to ask questions to the Tinkercad team. We love hearing from you. We love hearing from your questions, and your questions help us learn in order to make Tinkercad even better. So sadly, this is the last webinar for now. There are some plans for more webinars for back to school season. But if you miss us, you can binge watch us on YouTube. So we have all 4 of the episodes that we've done so far with wonderful educators who've taught us so much. We're so grateful to them. And then there's even previous seasons of this series as well. So Randy will share with you the link to the playlist. And this evening, we also have some art that is integrated into some of our slides by Leslie's STEAM Learning Lab, so Lesley University in Cambridge. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but we have a great agenda for this evening. We're again going to begin with Guillermo, who's going to talk about why this topic matters to us so deeply. We're next going to hear from Kevin, who's going to talk about his journey into making, but also provide some practical tips for how you can build a more inclusive makerspace or even just learning in your classroom. Next, we're going to hear from Anais and Jen, who are going to share with you an inspiring call to action around how you can change the conversation around who a maker is. And last but not least, there will be time for live question and answer. So you can ask questions to the Tinkercad team. You can also ask questions to our awesome panelists. In terms of the art that we're seeing tonight, it was created by our friend and Tinkercad and Instructables enthusiast, Dr. Natrice Gaskins. She's one of the co-directors of Leslie's STEAM Learning Lab. We actually did a webinar with her a couple of years ago that's still quite relevant. It's called Teaching the A in STEAM. Randy will share that link with you. Natrice actually wrote a book on this topic, and she's also created a really wonderful collection of Instructables that could help teachers engage in this topic. So for example, there's one really cool interdisciplinary activity where you can teach students about the Underground Railroad and the history of symbols in quilts that are kind of codes that are part of the story of the Underground Railroad. and then turn it into this kind of fun hip hop inspired Tinkercad activity that's in the format of a hip hop cipher where students are collaborating, they're improvising, and it's also a really joyful experience. Natrice was also a resident at our Autodesk Technology Center in Boston, where she designed these really awesome mathematical kind of kinetic sculptures, and she used Tinkercad to design them. And then she fabricated them in our space and brought them out to schools so that people of all ages could engage in the topic of math with people of all ages. So they're called Mathscapes. So thank you, Natrice, for providing us with these cool images. So Guillermo, please take it away, why this topic matters.
Absolutely. Can you move to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the reasons I was talking to Kellyanne at the beginning of the year, right, that we had to do something about this topic. This came about for different reasons, but one of them has to do with feeling represented, right? Feeling represented in an activity you want to do, and sometimes how that lack of representation might make you feel that you're not part of that, or you should not be part of that. And I'm going to give it a lens from a demographics standpoint of minorities, but it could be about different things, right? For example, that building you see there it's not there yet. It's just a really nice rendering done by our friends from the media side. But it's going to be an Autodesk Technology Engagement Center in CSUN on California State University Northridge, which we're going to be working with that university. We just a gift to help build this building, and it's going to have a makerspace not only for the people in the university but also for the community. And why is this important? This is where I want to come back to. This is the need to feel represented, to feel that they are people like us, right? And like us could mean many different things, right? I just very purposely put a picture here with all young male white kids, right, on a space, and that's how many makerspaces still look like. And what's happening right now is that if we think about STEM jobs or STEM related activities, if you can just click once more, you will notice a very low representation, in this case from Latinx and Black populations, but in general it happens at other levels too. And you could also say the same for gender. You could also have whenever different things, right? So this topic today is really important because we need to make sure that everybody can feel represented and everybody can feel that they have an opportunity to go into any career, right? The engineering is okay, right? No matter where you're coming from or how you look like, right? And it's up to us, I think, to start creating a world in which nobody stops doing something because they just don't feel that there's nobody like them, right? That's the reason why, for example, Kellyanne talking about hip hop for a second. Hip hop architecture camps were started by an architect that said, okay, nobody looks like me here, right? In whole Chicago, right? What can I do about it? So what can we do about it? I think that having a very, very specific, deliberate mindset about how to work on a makerspace, how to involve people, how to be inclusive is at the beginning of a solution. And as such, I'm going to stop talking because the people that come after me are the ones that really you want to hear. And yeah, just here for any questions later.
Thank you,
very much.
Guillermo.
All yours, Kevin.
That was awesome. All right, so before we move on to Kevin's presentation, we just wanted to put this question out to you in the chat. So I talked about the Leslie STEAM Learning Lab. Guillermo talked about hip hop architecture. What are some other of your favorite organizations that support a diverse maker community? You know, we love the Hidden Genius Project and Design With Us as well, but maybe there's some new organizations that we don't know about or that, you know, maybe you can share with others. And it could just be like a library, like a local library. Randy, do we have any responses?
I'm seeing MIT Labs, Fab Academy, Bio Summit, Fab Network. I might be pronouncing this wrong. Hasadores Makerspace in Mexico City.
Nice.
Nation of Makers.
Very cool. So keep building that list.
Arizona, sorry.
Okay.
I'm starting to get more. Arizona Science Center, Makerspace, Toronto Public Library. Yeah.
So all types of spaces.
all types.
Thank you, Randy. And do please feel free to continue sharing in the chat. But we're going to move on to Kevin, who's going to talk to us about how to build an inclusive makerspace. Kevin, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Kellyanne. What's up, everybody? Sorry about the sudden background noise. I'm here at our office in Oakland, California, right downtown. So we are. I am an alumni and educator and coordinator for the Hidden Genius Project. I've been a part of this space since 2016, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself in a moment, but today we're here to talk about how to build an inclusive makerspace. So really quickly, I'm just going to go through our agenda.
Kevin, your audio is like a little bit off. It was fine before.
Oh, let me check it real quick. 1 second.
No worries. We just want to make sure that we can hear you clearly.
Can you hear me a little bit better now, or is
Perfect? That sounds great, Kevin.
Okay, cool. So yeah, my name is Kevin Butler, and I'm going to talk about the Hidden Genius Project, give you a brief overview. Then I'm going to talk a little bit more about myself, and then we'll talk about what it means to be inclusive in general, how to build an inclusive makerspace, and then I'll touch on some final thoughts, and we can do some Q&A. But really, I think of this as like a conversation. Feel free to throw your thoughts into the chat at any point, or throw your questions in the chat, and hopefully we'll have a good amount of time to have that dialogue. So the mission of the Hidden Genius Project is to train and mentor Black male youth in technology creation, entrepreneurship, and leadership skills to transform their lives and communities. And what that means to me is that they equip Black male youth with all the tools that they need to succeed in today's age. So technology creation, technology is abundant. If you look out everywhere, you see technology all over the place, and it's kind of taken over. It can be a little scary, but our goal is to kind of demystify that for our geniuses and show them that there is a whole lot of opportunity for them if they're able and willing to take that on. Another big point is the leadership, which is teaching them how to have the interpersonal skills to be able to support themselves, support their communication, advocate for themselves, and understand what their role is, not just in their lives, but also the role that they play in their community. So that's what we teach in leadership. And then entrepreneurship is very important to us because we really want our geniuses to understand that it's important for them to be their own boss and be able to support themselves and not have to rely on anybody that may or may not see the value in them that we see in them and that we want them to see in themselves. So I wanted to touch on the fact that, looking at our mission statement, it actually doesn't sound very inclusive, just, face value, right? But we actually serve our broader community in a number of different ways. So the first way is we have what we call community partnership programming, which means that we partner with other nonprofit organizations, community centers, schools to offer programming to everybody within their demographic. So this could look like technology creation, design thinking, leadership. We offer a wide range of curriculum that is all underneath of our, that we do in-house, and then we offer it to the broader community. In addition to that, we also have catalyst events. An example is our annual event that we have called Brothers Code, where we invite everybody in the community to come and check out technology from different companies that we partner with, and also receive programming from our geniuses. So that's another way that we provide our gifts and offer programming to the broader community. And the last point that I wanted to talk about is, of course, our makerspace, which we call the Ubuntu Center. And as you can see it on the screen, it's a dynamic space that empowers youth to dream big and accomplish great things. So what that means is that it's a makerspace, of course, but the goal is for it to be free-flowing and more or less self-driven. So they can come in like drop-in hours. They can come in whenever they want during the open hours of the center. And then of course they get access to the technology, they get access to mentors, and they get access to me. But then the goal is to get them to a point where they are able to kind of take charge of what their own goals are and kind of run towards that. So I'm all about empowerment and independence, and I like to build with the students and get them to a point where they know what they have a clear goal in their mind, and they know that they can ask me questions to run towards that, but then they can also use the technology and the resources to what we say in the Hidden Genius Project is we say go fish. Right, because we know that all the answers are out there. It's just a matter of having the will and the drive to go chase that, right? But then again, they're not alone. They got me, and then we also partner with mentor expert volunteers to come into the space and share their gifts with the students as well. So that's our makerspace. This is a fairly new space that we're actually having a grand opening for at the end of this month. So I've just been learning and doing all kinds of trainings to help create this space and make it the best that it can be. So I'm excited to share my experiences with you all. And hopefully I will be able to give you something of value to take away to your spaces. So a little bit about me. I said tech, health, and balance because that's really what I'm about. I've been very passionate about technology since I was young. I'm an Oakland-based college student. I've been a part of the Hidden Genius Project, like I said, since 2016. And ever since I graduated, I've also been an educator. So once you graduate the program, they let you come back as a youth educator and they will pay you to teach for them. So I was able to take the gifts that they gave me and then give it back to my community in a way that is, was very fulfilling. And, I got to build that skill of being an educator and, just get to, figure out what was important to me, which was being able to help other people reach their goals and unlock that potential, right? I'm also a music lover. I'm really glad that part of our space is we got a music studio. So, once we get real comfortable and settled, I'm about to be in there. I'm trying to make some beats, see what I can do. But outside of that, I just mostly hang out with friends. I like movies, TV, pop culture, stuff like that. So that's pretty much it about me. So why did I put health and balance, right? So being in technology, there is like a culture that is very producive. I don't know if that's the right word, but basically what I'm saying is that it encourages you to produce at a high level at all times, right? Trying to be as efficient as possible, of course, but oftentimes it just don't really work out like that. So a lot of times as educators and as entrepreneurs and as people who work in tech, we often find ourselves burnt out and feeling unfulfilled, and that's been my experience. So I've had to come through that and work through that. And I've learned a lot about mental health and how important it is and how it impacts other areas of my life and of others that are in the same field doing the same work. So I wanted to prioritize self-care and having a work-life balance. So that's part of what's very important to me. And that's also what I wanted to share with y'all as fellow educators. So that's pretty much it about me. Now I want to talk about what it means to be inclusive. So real quick, while I get a sip of water, I want to pose y'all a question and say, when you hear the word inclusive, what are some words that fire off in your head? Like, what are some relating words? Let me see them in the chat real quick.
So yeah, we're seeing here equity, diverse, equity, balanced community, everyone welcoming, all groups, inclusive. Oh, it's moving fast. Welcoming.
That's what's up. That's
No
what's up.
boundaries.
No boundaries I saw as well, which was cool.
Nice, nice. Thank you. So y'all are already on in the thought process of what we're thinking and what we're talking about here. So that's what's up. I love to see it and I love to hear it. So hopefully this can still be helpful to y'all. I can give y'all some tips and some gems, but we're gonna dig into what does it actually mean to be inclusive. So At a high level, having a culturally inclusive environment requires mutual respect, effective relationships, clear communication, and explicit understandings about expectations. And then lastly, critical self-reflection. So the reason I put that there is because I wanted to have an overarching idea of what it means to be inclusive. And I wanted to highlight that last part of self-reflection, because for me, that's always been huge when it comes to understanding myself, why I feel the way that I feel, why I do the things that I do. And then from there, understanding the impact of that on my students, my friends, my family, and things like that. So I wanted to give y'all that nugget of understanding how impactful self-reflection is, and how it's often, you'll find it's often a common thread when it comes to creating inclusive environments. Because a big part of having an inclusive environment is simply understanding the people around you. And it's important to understand yourself and then understand the people around you. Like, they say, put the mask on in the airplane on yourself before you try to help other people. So that actually applies to a lot of other places in life. So some of the principles of an inclusive environment: people are free to express themselves freely. Everybody is fully participating because they are included, and everybody feels safe to do so in their environment. So it's all about creating a culture where all of these things are normalized, and the students can come in every day and expect to just settle in to this warm, welcoming, and inclusive environment. And then why is it important, right? So what we're doing here is we are shifting from a culture where people are generally looked down upon because of their differences, or where differences are put up as, oh, so there's something wrong with you or something like that. And that's kind of been the standard for a long time. So I think it's very important to understand that we're trying to elevate these learning environments and elevate ourselves as educators. So I think you should all give yourself a pat on the back, some clapping some hands, just understand that you being here makes you a revolutionary. You are elevating and changing and creating spaces where students can just feel and be, and that can be okay. And then not even just that, they'll see themselves differently. And then we'll talk more about how that kind of perpetuates to other areas in life. So seriously, y'all are rock stars, and you should be proud of yourselves for being here and getting this information and then acting on it and spreading it, right? So everybody having a sense of belonging, encouraging diversity, and understanding that people's differences are unique contributions. So now that we understand what being inclusive is and what an inclusive space looks like, we can talk about how to build our inclusive makerspace. So if we're thinking about this in steps, step one is definitely to build a relationship, right? So create a supportive, respectful environment by building relationships with each and every one of your students and understanding where they come from, understanding what their backgrounds are, and getting an understanding of what their culture looks like. So how do we do that at the Hidden Genius Project? So in our Immersion Bootcamp program, one of the first things that we do is we do community norms. So first day, of course, we have to get to know everybody, get to know their names, their story, their school, stuff like that. And then we try to create a way for them to intentionally put pieces of themselves into the learning environment. And how we have them do that is through community norms. So everybody who is all of the students basically contribute a community norm that is basically saying, hey, this is how I want my environment to look. This is how I will feel respected and appreciated in my learning environment. And then as a teacher, you are helping them co-create the learning environment and make it so that they can take ownership of it and feel comfortable in it. So that's why we do community norms, and that's why it's important, because they can feel like they are as much a part of the process as the teacher is. I also put culture-focused days, because once you get to know your students, you also want to find time to highlight their cultures and promote them and kind of show them off so that they feel like their culture is being supported in the classroom and in the learning environment. It just helps them feel more comfortable, and you'll see a lot more engagement and participation. And then I also put restorative justice because sometimes as teachers, we feel like, oh, we have to come up with consequences and stuff like that just by ourselves. But what we do at the Hidden Genius Project is we practice restorative justice. And what that means is that everybody in the cohort is included in how are we going to bring this brother back into this space so that they can feel comfortable, so that they can continue to participate. And we want everybody in the cohort to be included in that process. So it's not just like us telling them what's going to happen. It's like, what would make y'all feel comfortable? How do y'all think that we should make this brother accountable for his actions, and know that he's still loved, he's still our brother, and how can we move forward with peace and positivity and growth, right? So that's why we do restorative justice. Next one, we have, this one's very important, have high expectations for all your students. So this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, the previous culture, right? So a lot of times we would see people's differences as detriments, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to understand that there are simply pros and cons and strengths and weaknesses, right? So maybe you have a student who's not very good at reading, but he is a highly visual learner. He can put pieces together and create works of art that no other student can create. So it's all about creating adequate challenges for your students, all of your students, not just the ones that you vibe with or you feel like are in alignment with your teaching style. You really want to try to expand and grow yourself so that you can create those challenges for everybody. And then everybody feels included because they're all getting to put in that work and grow in that way, right? So that goes back to why I was talking about self-reflection. Because you have to understand that if you have a teaching style that resonates with a certain few students, but that maybe doesn't resonate with some students, then you have to kind of check yourself and be like, okay, how can I adapt to this situation and create some challenges and give some energy to the students who are not as engaged, right? So that's why it's important to understand and create where your students are at, and then create challenges and expectations for them to continue to elevate and rise and grow. Create a supportive peer culture both inside and outside the classroom. So this is another very important point. Not only do you want to create this culture of inclusivity for the students in your classroom, but you want to encourage them to spread that beyond to their schools, to their friends, to their family. And that will create a society where everybody feels included and everybody feels respected for their differences instead of looked down upon, right? So what does that look like in practical terms? So let's take mental health, right? Let's say you have a student who is having behavioral issues, and it's something that has to be addressed, or else you're not going to be able to move on in the class, right? So instead of singling them out and making it seem like, oh, there's something wrong with that student, maybe we can talk about mental health as a class and understand how can we as a class make this student feel understood and supported, and know that this is an environment where we want to see them win and we want to see them thrive regardless of what they might be going through, that things that are outside of their control, right? So that's just one example of how, and that applies to a lot of different things. It doesn't just have to be mental health. It could be financial background. It could be gender, identity, sexuality. Like, these are all things that affect us as individuals. But if we can create a culture where we understand that it's not just about that person, it's about how we react as a group to that person and their differences, then everybody's differences will feel included. So that hits the classroom, and then you have that culture and they're all doing that for each other. But then it's like, wow, this feels really good. I want to spread that to all my circles. I want to see this in my friend group. I want to see this in my family. I want to see this in a society that we are all co-creating together. So that's why I really want to hit on the point that y'all are changing the culture. Y'all are doing really great things for not just your students or yourselves, but for society at large, right? I think it's important that everybody feels included, and that it kind of starts with y'all, and it starts with your students, because we know the children are the future. And if we try to show them that this is what society could look like, then they're going to want to see that in their circles and beyond, and they're going to be adults and they're going to perpetuate that, and it's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. Okay, I think this is my last one. Plan learning, which includes participation from everybody and encourages success. So the big part about this one is, again, understanding that everybody has a different cultural background. And so you want to try to create that equity, like folks were saying in the chat, create that equity within your classroom, right? So that might not always look like you doing research. I mean, of course, it's good to do your research and try to incorporate things from different cultures into the lesson plan, but you can also talk to the students and saying like, what works best for you? So going back to that example of the student who is not so good at reading, but they're great at like visual and artistic different things, right? So instead of, maybe you can do an individual learning plan with that student by having that conversation, like what works best for you? Like what in terms of the classroom, how do you feel like what do you feel like are your strengths and how can we build on that, right? As opposed to maybe just doing a general lesson and then maybe they get behind and then they feel left out, you know, and they just don't feel good. They don't feel included, right? So the point is to be receptive to that input from the student, right? Let the student tell you what will work best for them. And then you as a teacher understand that and incorporate that into the lessons that you are delivering to the classroom. And then that way the student feel, again, like going back to have like the community norms. It's like they're co-creating the learning experience as opposed to just having someone come down on them and tell them, and you know, it just feels better, it just feels different, right? So, oh wait, I got one more. So last and very important is take a community approach to learning and teaching, right? So oftentimes, and especially within our culture in the tech field, we end up working in silos and we end up just doing things that are very individualistic. And what we propose is that it's very important to have a community-oriented approach to learning. So that looks like doing things as a group, having group projects, and then also like take your students out of the classroom, like show them that they are part of a community and a larger ecosystem that wants to see them thrive, right? So at the Hidden Genius Project, within the first couple of weeks of the program, we actually go out into our community and take what we call a community walk, where we go through and we see, even if it's like a rough neighborhood, you know, we kind of tailor it into our entrepreneurship and saying, well, what are the issues that we face coming up and growing up in this neighborhood? And what are some ways that maybe we could fix those issues with technology? So we kind of loop the community aspect into the programming and the lesson plan. And that's always a big part of what we do at Hidden Genius. So that's definitely, so that's just one example of how y'all can take that energy and apply it to your classrooms. So yes, that was my last one. So I just want to wrap up with these final thoughts. If I had to put everything I said into a step-by-step, I would say step one, create a substantial connection and build a relationship with each and every one of your students. And that will enable you to understand what their culture is, what's important to them, and then that information will help you adapt and accommodate everybody within the classroom, and then everybody feels included, right? So that's step one. Step two, like I said, ask questions about their culture and be open to receiving that input from the student. So that's just co-creating the learning environment and the experience with the student. I like to think that the best teachers are lifelong learners, right? So that's just a principle and a core thing to, you know, to help you like adapt and that self-reflection, that piece that I was talking about. And then lastly, incorporate the things that you're understanding and learning from your students into your lesson. So they feel like they are being included, their culture is included, and they're being seen as people and not just students or kids or, you know, whatever, what have you, right? And then I said empathy plus application equals inclusivity. So empathize with your students, understand where they're coming from, and then apply that into your lessons and the learning environment. And then you will end up with an inclusive learning environment. And that's what we want to see in all of your maker spaces. So that's my spiel. My name is Kevin Butler, and that's the end of my presentation. So I now, if I have time, I'll take some questions But I just want to say thank you all for listening. If you want to learn more about the Hidden Genius Project, there's our website. And then we had our social media handles on our previous slide. But once y'all get the slides, you'll be able to tap in and reach out in that way. So thank you all for listening. I'm here for some questions. Kellyanne, please keep me, in alignment with the timing and the schedule. But yeah, thank you, everyone.
Well, Kevin, I think you're seeing all of the love and appreciation stream in the emojis. You have a lot of
Thank you.
fans. A lot of what you said resonated with me as a teacher. I actually taught English, and some of my favorite students to teach that challenged me were the ones who hated English class, but were really good at math or another subject. So that super resonated with me. And also just even one of the, when you asked the question about inclusion, one of the participants said that they feel included when they feel heard. And I felt like that was something that was really important to kind of think about. Randy, I know that there were some questions for Kevin that came through. Do you want to share a couple of those questions?
Yes. First one is they're curious to know how your particular organization gets the word out to the community. Is it through flyers or guerrilla tactics, or just through kind of word of mouth?
So when we first started, a lot of it was word of mouth and just relationship building with other nonprofit organizations, other partners, and stuff like that. We have a heavy social media presence as well. So, we try to market ourselves in that way, but a lot of it is just also relationship building with other folks that are in this space.
Cool. Another question that came through here is, do you go into the community and partner with schools or maker spaces?
Yeah, so that's a pillar of how we tap in with our community directly. We have community partnership programming, which is where we send staff and youth educators to other nonprofit organizations, schools, community programs, and folks and places where they're trying to do the same thing, and we have the same goals. So we partner with them to tap in with the community.
Another question here is basically, any ideas on spreading makerspace inclusivity vertically up and down through different age groups, as well as across diversity across different groups?
Absolutely. I mean, our makerspace is open to the middle school and high school students, but I definitely think it's important to have this conversation earlier. I mean, I would say as early as elementary school, because those kids are really smart. Like, they see what's going on in society. They see how, they see marginalization. They see how, the lack of equity, and they're forming their own ideas already. So I think it's important to have that conversation as early as possible. And then even going up to college, like you said, just understanding how to perpetuate that and keeping that conversation going across all aspects is very important, and I think will be very effective.
Any more, Randy?
Yeah, here's a light one. What is the favorite area in your makerspace?
My favorite area? Yeah, I'm really hyped to get into the studio. I've been looking at it. I have to be the coordinator, so I haven't really got to dig into anything like too deeply, but I walk past it, I see it, I sit in there, and I even be working with students in there already. So I'm really hyped to, once I feel comfortable and I feel settled, I'm gonna go in after hours and I'm gonna get to work.
Emeryville High School wants to know how to connect with you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I can put my email in the chat, but there's also a form if y'all wanted to, if you want to share it with your students, I have a form that they could sign up for. And then once they sign up, they pretty much get access to the space. So y'all could really just come in. And if you wanted to schedule a field trip or something with me, we can work that out too. So I'll put those resources in the chat.
Cool. I see two more questions. The first is, are you familiar with any maker spaces that do what you do for gender inclusivity?
So I know there's another Best Buy Teen Tech Center in San Leandro. There's a Boys and Girls Club over there. So they practice the same model that we have over here. There's also a makerspace in the McClymonds High School that's over here in West Oakland. And I think those are the only ones I know of that are closest to here.
Cool. The last one here is, what's the significance of the name of your makerspace?
Oh, see, y'all are rock stars for real, because I wanted to touch on that and I didn't. So yes, Ubuntu. Ubuntu is an African proverb and it means I am because we are, and we are because I am. So basically what that means is that we highly encourage and enforce the principle of the collective and the understanding that we are only as strong as our weakest link. And so we wanted to prepare, that's a big core principle of the Hidden Genius Project itself. And we wanted to incorporate that into this new space that we're coming into of, you know, serving our community, our broader community in a different way. So that's why we named it as such, and we're continuing to spread that to other locations and hopefully even across our other sites on a national scale.
Cool. I think that's all we have for now.
Well, we will have a question and answer at the end as well. And we do have a question for you too, for our participants who are so on point this evening. So Kevin talked a little bit about what helped get him into maker education, things that interest him, that kind of brought him into making. What in the chat, could you please let us know what helped you find your way into either maker education or being a maker, or just even like what excited you about the topic this evening? For the sake of time, we're going to keep moving, but do please share with each other in the chat. So what helped you find your way into maker education? So next up, we have Anais and Jen, who are going to rally us up even more, talking about changing the conversation around who is a maker. So Anais and Jen, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We are here to talk about changing the conversation around who is a maker. And we are here speaking as part of Design With Us. And we are a nonprofit focused on giving disabled young people access to creative opportunities based on their own lived experience. So that student-driven concept that Kevin was really zoning in on, that is our entire purpose. And I have Anais Ariola with us to share some of the ways that the organization has been a part of her life. And I'm gonna let her take it away. And we can't hear you. Stand by, sorry. Oh.
Did Anais lose her?
I think she lost her connection, even though we had it before.
Huh.
Boo. Okay.
Is she there?
She's still there.
I wonder, Jen, maybe should we switch it up and
Yeah, I'll go to me and then we'll come
we
back
can
to
go
her.
back to Anais?
Yeah, because I don't want to talk for her. So we'll come back. But I want to share about our organization and our work, and the biggest takeaway I hope that the teachers in this group take from us is that design is never for a community. Design needs to be with a community. And that's why our purpose and our name has that focus on with us. The disability community, if you have been a part of the makerspace culture for any amount of time, you have seen and heard of all these designs where students have been given a project to, quote, help someone who is disabled, but often that project and that challenge is not actually with a member or members of the disability community. And so why am I doing this? Hi. By the way, I'm Jen Reeves. I co-founded Design With Us with my daughter, Jordan, who is now 17. We founded the organization in 2017 after my daughter was given an opportunity to design based on her own experience as a person who was born with one hand. And she designed a prosthetic arm that shoots glitter because why not? And also because parents weren't involved. That's really important too. So I'm the executive director of design with us. I consider myself a disability ally, but also an accomplice, because I am really okay with getting in a little bit of trouble and making it can be a little messy at times. I'm really comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think that's very important. I wrote a book with my daughter. It's called Born Just Right. It's a middle grade book about her experience learning about being a designer with a disability, but also just her tips and advice on inclusion around disability intersections. I am always talking about intersections and not just disability, because disability touches every intersection of marginalized communities, of non-marginalized communities. Disability is everywhere. And I think that's very important to keep in mind. Also, it was 7 years ago when I met Guillermo, and I just had to shout that out because, hi, Guillermo. We were talking a lot with Kevin about makerspace accessibility. I just wanted to throw in a few extra tidbits from my experience. We don't have enough makerspaces for youth under age 18, and I'm thrilled that more and more schools are opening makerspaces, but I'm a really big fan of public makerspaces that also include under 18. And I just want us all to keep asking for that kind of accessibility. But also when it comes to makerspaces and any makerspaces, to be really mindful about its accessibility for physical disabilities. Buildings should be accessible, and not only should the building be accessible, the makerspace itself. Being super mindful around adaptive tools or simple adaptations that can make maker tools more available. And I love using an example of my daughter's shop teacher. He knew that my daughter was going to be coming into the shop with one hand, and so he put large seat clamps at every station for every person to use, even if they had two hands, knowing that that clamp could really hold down things, and she wouldn't have to be like, hey, I need a seat clamp at this station, I need one at here. It just became more accessible because it was available. And I think those simple, mindful moments are very, very important, especially for students to feel like they are included and available to truly be the makers they can be. It's also super important to not only be trained as staff to know how to use the tools, but to also identify and be flexible and creative around solutions to use the tools that are in your makerspace. My biggest hope for our time together is to help you think through some really important perspective shifts when it comes to disability and the world of making and honestly teaching. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that please consider disability as something that is natural, but a lack of accessibility is not. Our universe was not built, our modern day everything infrastructure was not built with disability in mind. And so often a lack of accessibility is what causes disability to be considered negative. It's not the disability itself. So please think of it as a more natural part of everybody's lives and world. But also so important, do not assume you know what a disabled person needs. Take the time to listen, include, and never assume. That listening is so key, not only when you are bringing a disabled person into your makerspace or your classroom or your brainstorming sessions, but when you are including someone in a brainstorming session and wanting to work with a member of the disability community, it's so important to not only listen, but really show that you are including that person. There have been times when our young people, we have a youth design consultancy where they were brought in to give input, and the designer did not actually hear any word they said because they had already made assumptions and did not truly listen. So make a point of listening and making sure that that person knows that you heard it and are willing to make changes to your design or your concepts. Speaking of design concepts, I am a huge believer that all design should include disabled users, all design. So if you have a student who's working on a project, please consider who can and cannot use that design. While we were in the pandemic, we did an online workshop. I had a young person who designed a bag to fit on his bike to go to school. And he changed, when he started thinking about making it more accessible, he changed the design where it didn't rigidly fit on his bike. He realized if it became a more flexible bag that could hang on other things, it could hang on a wheelchair, it could hang on a walker, it could, he realized that this bag would be really useful, not just on a bike, just by thinking about that type of inclusivity. And then I do, when I'm encouraging you to include others, when you bring in and include members of the disability community, do not assume that one disabled person holds the knowledge of all disabled people, because there are so many disabilities out there. I know that we have Anais, are you here on the phone?
Anais did call in. I told you, Jen, that the theme of this episode is we
it's
can work it out.
flexibility. Yes, we
And
can.
the sound of Stevie Wonder, although we like the Beatles version too. But
Yes. So, oops. Oh my gosh. Back to my presentation. I'll go back. Anais, are you able to chat?
so she should be able to.
Can you guys hear me?
Hey,
Yes, yay, we
hear
figured it
you.
out.
Amazing.
So sorry about that. My
That's
internet
okay.
was
It's a
working.
maker mindset. It's like when you have it, it's like we can do it, right?
Yes, we can. So Anais, I have the first this first screen up with your kind of maker story.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So my name is Anais. A little bit about me. I attended the 2018 5-day workshop at Autodesk. So I was around 14, 15 years old. I am currently a junior now at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I'm studying biology. I am also the co-founder of Make Just Right, which is a design consultancy organization, which is mainly a group of disabled individuals, and we all, kind of get together and discuss, the intricacies in design and how being disabled has really changed our views when it comes to the world we live in, and how we are able to adapt around that, and the things that we use to be able to adapt around that, how can we make them better. So a little bit about my story. So once again, it was in 2018. I was spending that summer at home. A doctor actually recommended me to go to the makerspace, basically to sum it all up, saying, don't spend all summer inside, go outside and do something. So I went, and it was an amazing experience. I was paired with a designer, and she was absolutely incredible. And basically, we sat down and she asked me, in your daily life, what is something that you feel like could improve? And I am 5 foot, barely as it is. So being in the chair also means that I am very short. So one of my projects that I wanted was something that would be able to help me reach things in a higher area, so like cabinets and such. So we created these lifts that would attach to my wheels so that if I rolled forward, it would be able to help me, it would lift me up and I would be able to grab things from top shelves or anything. And that was honestly an amazing experience to go through, because it really opened my eyes to the world of design. I had always planned to go into a science, biology mainly, and being able to like dip my toe or my finger, I guess, into the world of design was really awesome, and it really shaped who I am today. So some new things that I'm working on: I am currently a adaptive surfer. I compete in Hawaii, and I'm also the president of the Ohana Intersectionality Alliance, which is a club at my school where we try to combine, everyone's intersectionalities to discuss very important topics that we see on or off campus. One big one that we've been mainly focusing on recently, and I've been working with my school on, is that I've been in contact with the provost of my school to fix the accessible routes at my campus. So there is a little map on one of the slides, and that is basically an aerial view of one of my campuses, or one of section of my campus. And that building, just to give kind of some context, if you guys have ever heard or seen of University of Hawaii at Manoa, it is on a hill in Manoa Valley. So most of the classes are on upper campus and the dorms are on lower campus. So I live on lower campus, and last year, I had classes in the very top corner of the school, which was the business building. And in order to get there, there's a lot of twists and turns, but one of the main areas that caused a lot of trouble was in the quad type area, which is more towards the building. So if you see, there's a dotted blue line, which is the accessible path that I had to take. And there's the red path that was the quote unquote normal path to get through. Now, the normal path took about 15 minutes to get from lower campus up to the business building. For me, it took 20 to 25 minutes just to wrap around. And that was a lot of tardy slips that went to my professor. But it was really eye-opening for my provost to actually hear about, because I discussed it with him and he had no idea about, wow, this building is actually extremely inaccessible to get through. You have to weave through classes and go up and down hills and go on the main road. So that was a really big eye-opener for him. And because of the workshop that I was able to attend, I was able to not only get the knowledge of, this is how design would work and this is how it would communicate. It also gave me confidence in being able to talk about it, because usually I find myself, something's inaccessible, I used to kind of brush it under the rug. But now if something's inaccessible, I am almost always the first person to kind of stand up figuratively and be like, hey, this is wrong, this needs to be fixed. So that is something that I am working on currently, and thanks to the workshop, I was able to gain a voice for it.
And that is awesome. And I really appreciate you for being able to share your experience, Anais, and pushing through the technical challenges. I think one of the last things that I think is just so very important is that within the disability community, a long-standing mantra that I believe it really is for anyone, but nothing about us without us, nothing about the disability community without the disability community. And I saw a couple of things in the chat. I do think it's important to note, if you are uncomfortable including the disability community in your project, do not do a project that is focused on helping the disability community. That is so key. I really strongly recommend getting to know members of the disability community in your town, in your city, in your region, and build some partnerships so that you have more of a comfort around that, the community.
Well, that was awesome, Jen and Anais, and I feel proud that we worked it out, which we can, because we can always work it out, right?
Yes, of course.
All right, so we have another question to push out to you, which just, a lot of people in the chat have been saying that they've learned so much and there's so much inspiration of things that they will take away even tomorrow or even right now. So what's a change that you could make in your classroom or in your makerspace based on what you learned during this webinar? So what's one new thing that you're going to do differently, or maybe a different approach that you might take in your teaching, or just in the way that you facilitate your makerspace, or even like the physical layout? Like that's another thing to think about. So thinking about changes. Randy, anything going on in the chat? This is a kind of deep thought question.
Yeah.
I think too.
Someone says they're going to, Robin says they're going to ask the students for more ideas. more student-led activities. Um, let's see. A community walk in equity. Someone really liked. I also thought it was a really cool idea.
It's a great idea.
Pay more attention to the disabled people. Arrange the resources available in my lab considering disability. Yeah, love getting feedback from students. Develop cultural exchanges inside the classroom to be more inclusive. Oh,
Is there a good one, Randy?
ask for community norms and get one from each student.
That was a direct takeaway from Kevin's presentation as well. So a lot of deep thinking happening, and we thank you for that. So we're going to move on to the live Q&A in a moment, so that I know that you did talk a little bit and were able to ask questions to Kevin, but you also may ask questions to Jen, to Anais, to the rest of the Tinkercad team. But before we do that, and thinking about things that we might take away, we just wanted to share the link to you to Dr. Natrice Gaskin's Instructables page that she's created through her role at the Leslie Steen Learning Lab. So lots of really fun. It's not all Tinkercad. There's some Tinkercad stuff in there, but just like a lot of really like fun, joyful activities that also are have lots of ways in for all types of learners to see themselves in STEM, which is something that's super important. Just another opportunity for your students in thinking about kind of this topic of creating, access, thinking about using a maker mindset in order to improve your community. We are hosting over Instructables, a contest where we're giving away over $50,000 in scholarship awards for students ages 13 to 21. And the challenge is to rethink a gap that exists in your community by designing a new structure or space that includes a pedestrian bridge. So using it to create access. We have our friend James Devlin, who is a former NFL football player, 3-time Super Bowl champion, who helps us kind of think through some of these challenges and really cares about, some of the objectives of the contest, like strengthening civic life, bringing people together across lines of differences, increasing accessibility. And as Jen, was talking about in her presentation, maybe your students might want to include, people with disabilities, various disabilities, or people that are just different from them, and thinking about ways that they can build connection through this contest. If you want more information and guidance and tips and inspiration for the contest, we did host a webinar with the ACE Mentor program, with actually one of the winners of the contest last year, Michael Hidalgo, who won $10,000 for his design. So do please check that out or share this link with your students so that they can check it out. For teachers, we are really excited. The members of the Autodesk education team will be at ISTE this year in Philadelphia in June. So if you're there, please check us out. We also will have an event page for ISTE. Where maybe even if you're not going to ISTE, you can check out some of the content that we'll be presenting in our theater talks. And we also be featuring Tinkercad and Fusion 360. And
Yeah.
Randy, did you want to talk about this other awesome contest?
I actually want to say about ISTE, I know we've gotten a lot of questions here over the last few webinars about how to get a t-shirt. If you want a Tinkercad t-shirt, come find us at ISTE.
That is a great strategy, Randy. And did you want to talk a little bit about the PBL contest?
Yeah, so Instructables is hosting a project-based learning contest for educators to share how to use project-based learning in classroom. We have special prizes specifically for teachers using Tinkercad in various aspects, be it SimLabs or circuits or code blocks. And we also have categories for specific subjects and Fusion. So if you use project-based learning at all, which seems like a lot of you do, you should check out the contest.
Over $40,000 in prizes. That's a
That's
lot.
40,000 in prizes.
So we do hope in our hiatus and our break, you stay connected with us. These are all the different ways that you can stay connected. And one of the things that I wanted to share is that in a few days, if you're here attending with us live, or even if you just registered, You will be emailed the slides from this presentation. So you can actually, if you're tempted to click on all the links right now, you'll be able to in a matter of a few days because you'll have these slides in your inbox. You also, if you attended live, you are going to be also emailed a link to a folder with a certificate. So if you're using this webinar series as part of your professional development plan and you need to produce artifacts for your administrators to show them that you have a certificate and you attended, we wanted to make sure that we gave this to you. I ran out of colors this time, so I made a rainbow. So I hope that you enjoy the aesthetic of this certificate as well. So that's what we have for our formal presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're here for questions if you want to stick around and ask questions.
Right, so we have from the Q&A, we have a question for Kevin. Something they want to know more about hip hop architecture. They heard you mention in your presentation.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think it's Guillermo. Kevin, do you know? So hip hop architecture, Michael Ford is an amazing architect and designer that we've worked with in the past. And he's based in Chicago and he's created these awesome camps. I actually had a chance to, at South by Southwest a few years ago, I had a chance to participate. You kind of have to like participate in the activity in order to really kind of fully get it. So he uses kind of hip hop lyrics and you analyze the structure, like it could be like the rhyme scheme, it could be the form of the hip hop lyrics. And then you take that pattern and then you turn it into architecture. And it's like really fun. So it's like, and as an English teacher, it's like, oh, this is like looking at things through the formalist lens. And I'm annotating it and I'm marking it up. And then I'm taking my notes and then I have like building blocks and then I'm like creating patterns based on that. So it's super fun. And I know that he does it in Chicago, but it's in other cities because they were in Boston at one point. And they've been in cities throughout the country. So check out hip hop architecture. It's really fun.
All right. Okay, someone's school has a girls who code club. They're wondering how they can start a Hidden Genius club at their school.
What? Oh, that's super sweet. Yeah, I mean, well, all students are hidden geniuses. Hopefully y'all won't feel so hidden once you start your club. If y'all are in Oakland or California, y'all could come check us out in the Ubuntu Center. I put the link into the forum and the website in the chat. Maybe we could get that out to the folks, but feel free to connect with us. And we can talk more about how we can kind of spread it. But our goal right now is to open up more Ubuntu centers in some of our partner locations. So one in East Oakland, there's another one, I believe, in Richmond. Don't quote me on that, but I know for sure East Oakland. So yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, we can definitely support with helping you kind of recreate the structure and the space and the environment, and maybe even we can do a community partnership programming opportunity at the school. So yeah, lots of opportunity. Let's have a conversation.
Awesome. I love all the connections that are being made this evening.
Cool. Another question. My school has a large deaf and hard of hearing population. How can I make my room more inclusive for them?
I love that. I would bring the class or the group of students into there and give them a challenge to make something. Seriously. What's magical to me about the disability community is the adaptations that our culture forces upon members of the disability community. And that forced creativity creates brains, especially young brains, who are so full of ideas. And so giving them time to tap into your makerspace and just see what kind of magic can happen, you're gonna have the best time.
Cool. Right. It seems like we have one more question, and I think this is kind of a Bay Area specific question, but what maker communities exist in the Bay Area that people can connect with?
So the ones that I know of outside the Ubuntu Center, of course. So there's definitely another Best Buy Teen Tech Center in San Leandro at the San Leandro Boys and Girls Club. And then I know of the tech center inside of McClymonds School. So I think your best bet is probably the San Leandro one. Definitely check them out. I've been there. I love it. I'm actually kind of jealous because they have a lot more space, but it's really dope. So I would definitely recommend checking them out.
Great. It seems like we've reached the end of our questions here.
Awesome. Well, we did, we advertise these as 60 minutes, but we know that that's never going to happen because there's so much great content to share. But we are so happy that you joined us. I mean, it's like, I feel just like I want to go out and make something and welcome someone into making something with me from all the inspiration from the speakers. So thank you so much to our special guests. So Anais, making it work on the phone. Thank you so much, Jen. And Kevin, this was super awesome, super informative. I will share the chat with you later because you got so much love and adoration in the chat. So good vibes all around. And thank you to the extended Tinkercad team for being here to answer questions. And we hope to see you in the back to school season at some point in some sort of webinar form. But in the meantime, we hope that you take some time to just like relax, like Kevin said, like wellness and, giving yourself a break is also super important. So we hope that you're cruising into the end of the school year, that you have a wonderful summer, that you don't overexert yourself by teaching too much summer school and just take some time to take a break and think and create a more inclusive space for your students in the fall. So thank you for joining us. I think that Guillermo wanted us to make a new awkward wave GIF at some point. So feel free to do an awkward wave and we'll turn it into a GIF. Sorry. Anais is like, I'm glad that I'm on the phone right now. So
Shout out you, Kellyanne. Thank you for hosting.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I hope that we can continue our collaboration. So thank you so much. Take care. Have a great evening. Good night.
Good night, everyone.